All right, well, the 16 days of activism ended yesterday in South Africa, but the fight against gender-based violence does indeed continue. Today, we look at the GBVF Fund that was launched by President Cyril Ramaphosa on the 4th of February, together with the International Women's Forum of South African social partners. Private sector companies and organised business pledged about 128 million to fight against gender-based violence. Let's take a look into this fund and the work that it's doing. Has been doing so far too to assist victims and fight the scourge. We're now joined via Zoom by board member for GBV Fund, Dr Namane Magau. A very good afternoon to you, Doctor. Thanks very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Good afternoon.
Doctor, 16 days of activism has just wrapped up, and of course the fight against the scourge of gender-based violence does indeed continue. Talk to us and take us through your role as the GBV Response Fund in this fight, and also just a back question to that: can we throw money at this problem?
Definitely. The GBVF Fund has taken off, and the starting point was to establish partnerships, because the GBV Fund realized that even the 128 million that was donated is like a drop in the ocean, because the problem is so huge. And also the board of the fund was careful to ensure that the funds should be utilized in places where it can achieve the greatest impact. And at this point in time, a lot of work has been done, analysis with regard to where the problems are, but also they have recruited partners, agencies that are going to be implementing. 25 agencies are coming on board, but also we have established partnership not only with private sector, which continues to look at how it can support and sponsor our initiative. We also have embassies coming on board to support the fund, because the fund views itself as a conduit to activate the response and to support agencies that are directly providing support to women in need out there in communities.
Yeah, so
and one of the most
Sorry, Doctor. So I'll just ask a more direct question then with relation to this particular fund. I hear you talking about the establishment of partnerships, but let's talk directly to the work that you have done so far. The scourge is happening, it's ongoing. We're constantly hearing about women being killed, women being abused, and so forth. And I think my direct question is really about where that money is being directed to exactly. That will indeed have direct consequences, that is to minimize or to stop this issue of gender-based violence that we are faced with. So to say it again, my direct question is, where's that money going? Where's the fund? Where are they going? Where's that money going to?
The money is being allocated in accordance with the prevalence of GBV violence across the country. So the fund has looked at how the money can be dispersed across the country, across all regions. And they've placed priority on the provinces that have got a high prevalence of gender-based violence. And in addition, it has gone further to bring on board agencies that have been working in the area, but also to identify agencies in various areas, in rural areas, in urban areas, and also through support of capacity building to ensure that the agencies that are coming on board will be capacitated to provide support to the implementation of the funds.
Yeah.
So they did not take the money and allocate it. They had to do an analysis, and in accordance with that, They have identified agencies, and those agencies, they are only now going to be allocating to them. Yeah. So it had to take a while because the GBV fund was starting from scratch. It had to start with analysis of the problem. It also had to start with development of its policies. It now has an efficient CEO, and also it has recently appointed a CFO. And our allocating committee has taken the trouble to ensure that through proper analysis, they identified the hotspots, and also saw that the limited amount we have can actually address the problems where they exist the most. Yeah. But we are also looking at, and we appreciated that SABC is talking to us, because this is work that has got to lead to behavioral change. This is work that requires that all of us be involved to make sure that we eliminate the scourge of GBV violence in corporations, in communities, in institutions all over the country, and even in families and homes, that we teach our children to respect human rights, to respect both women and men, and also so that children grow up with that positive sense of being a part of a human society where men and women are equal. And it's some of those gaps that we are attempting to address. Yeah. And I'm pleased that also universities have come on board. Our chair and CEO have been engaging universities, and there's also engagement with regard to research, and also they are creating a dashboard which will be released early in the new year to ensure that we can continue to update South African citizens on the status, but also to inform citizens about where best practice exists. And in that way, rally both private sector, public sector, NGOs, civil society to work in collaborating to make sure that we stamp out GBV fund. Yeah. We see our Dr. work Magau, as an enabling one.
Can I please come in here? You speak about the fact that you will be updating us on the status in terms of where these agencies are. And I'd like to ask how you plan to follow up with these agencies to see that, in fact, these funds are being utilized properly, because we'd hate to see a situation where we're talking, you and I, again, and we're asking you, and I'm asking you again the question as to where those funds are directed, because every time there is a middleman where funds are directed to, let's just say, an agency, along the line somewhere we find situations where we're failing to find out what happened to the funds that were allocated, and you as an organization will say, well, we gave those funds, but then there's no trace as to what happened to those funds. And I think that's why I'm pushing on this question of where those funds are going, because I will ask it again in future. When we're asking again, we're sitting here, we've celebrated or commemorated 16 days of activism yet again, we're seeing these scary numbers in South Africa of gender-based violence, and nothing has been done. I mean, just to give you an example, shelters, there've been many complaints by victims of gender-based violence that there aren't enough shelters, and one wonders why there has to be a middleman in this, when we could have situations where there are shelters that are built, adequate places of safety for women that are, and most of the time they have children, which is why they can't leave the homes where they are being abused. So these are some of the issues that gender-based violence victims are dealing with, and that's why I'm asking the issue of where exactly that money is going. And I hear you talking about the agencies that have been identified, but isn't that directly where that problem does then lie?
These are agencies that are located in those communities. So it is agencies that have been working on GBV, gender-based violence, and we are building on the expertise and the knowledge and the impact that they were having in some areas. We have extended the number of agencies, and also through a proper screening process, ensured that we have agencies that can deliver. And I hear you and agree with you that we have to come back to you and indicate to you which those agencies was, and also so that everyone can know where the agencies are. And that is going to be done before the end of the year, and also we'll be following up every month and every quarter to report back to society in terms of the occurrence of GBV and what those agencies are doing in that regard. But following in particular, focusing more on those that are impactful. And with regard to those that might be struggling to make the impact, we have already arranged capacity building that will ensure that those agencies that need support in order that we can ensure excellence in this area of crucial need are fully supported. The CEO will be reporting on a regular basis, and also will be looking at doing this in the regions, so that for each and every regions, there can be report on the progress that is being made, on the challenges that are happening, so that on an ongoing basis, we continue to address the issues and also to acknowledge the shift or the lack of shift that is happening in all the areas. So we are ready to support implementation with the limited funds we have. We also continue to raise funds because that 128 is limited and could only afford 25 agencies that we are currently allocating to, but even those we are going to ensure provide the greatest impact.
All right. Well,
we are also working with...
Yeah, I'll certainly be following up, but that's where we'll wrap up the conversation. Thanks very much, Magau, for speaking to us here on SABC News. We certainly do appreciate it, and no doubt I will be following up on this. Thank you.
Thank you for following up, and thanks for your support.
You're most welcome.
Bye.
That's Dr Namane Magau, who's a board member of GBVF Fund, and as she has noted, they have identified agencies who will be receiving these funds in order to help in the scourge against gender-based violence.